but in a kind of a stylistic way. I'm going to go back to our little city here, see how they're doing. We have a crater where that building used to be. In the vehicle editor, there's one more slot that over time we could eventually unlock as we're playing through the game. We started with ground vehicles, water, air, underwater, and at this point, I can now buy what we call the UFO. And I'm just going to buy a stock one. I could have brought this in the vehicle editor as well. Now, this basically becomes your Swiss Army knife at this point. This becomes the representation of all your kind of tools and abilities in the game. This guy is very fast, very mobile. He can go anywhere on the planet in no time at all. Now, there was another landmark that really kind of inspired me at this level. Just a little short side story here. There was this show I used to watch as a kid all the time. It was called The Mutual of Omaha's Wildlife Kingdom. How many of you saw that show? Oh, yeah. So it had Marlon Perkins and this other dude, I forgot his name. But they would go around, every episode was them saving some wild endangered animal, or studying it or something. But what I loved about the show was that every week almost, the way that they chose to solve the problem, their environmental problem, almost always involved a high-powered tranquilizer gun and a helicopter. And so I'd watch the whole show just for the scene at the end where the guy's in the helicopter hanging out, trying to get, going through the herd, nabbing the guy. So that was something that I really wanted with my UFO here. And so the UFO really, one of the things it is, it's a content creation tool. So I can go around looking for something. Let's see. Oh, these are the guys that were beating up on us way back. Now it's time for us to get our revenge. Okay, if I can get over to them. This is a little tricky. Whoa, got him. Yes. So here, this is basically a little abduction beam, and that guy's too fast for me. Oh, I don't want to tank. No way. I can get that guy. Oh, man, they're hard to get. Well, I guess one will do. So I can use this to go around the world sucking up content. And as you might have guessed, I can also use my UFO to kind of go further out, and further out, and further out, and further out, and further out. So here's the local solar system. A few comets, there's our sun. We have hot planets near the sun. This is our home planet that we actually evolved on. And then way out here we have some cold planets. We can click on any planet, kind of go over to it. And we can actually take our UFO there to investigate. These planets really represent like little sandboxes for the player. So as we pull up to this moon, you notice geologically it's very different than where we came from, than our home planet. It's much further away from the sun. Now, one of the things I want to do with this thing is I actually want to kind of bootstrap it up to life, and basically build a whole flourishing, civilization on this. And I might do a very different style too. So you can view these as like different palettes that I have to work with. So one of the things I want to do is I want to try to get life on this planet to live and kind of bootstrap it up. I'm going to come down to the surface here, really quick. Now, I'm going to try dropping that guy I just picked up. Can anybody tell me why that happened? If we can bring up the volume a little bit on this machine. Yeah, that's good. So we had a little problem there, and we have no atmosphere. Okay. So what we really want to do is we want to make this world livable. Now, at this level, another one of my kind of landmarks was an old thing called Kid Pigs. How many of you played Kid Pigs? I wanted this to feel like Kid Pigs, basically. What I loved about Kid Pigs is you had all these cool, weird, wacky, creative tools, and they were always out of your control. I mean, you always did these unexpected, oops, I didn't mean to do that type of thing. And I wanted the terraforming to kind of feel like that as well. So I'll pick one of my terraforming tools. And these are things that you earn for the UFO. You're actually increasing your UFO's ability over time, and there are lots and lots of tools and different ladders. So we'll fire a little volcano tool. And so this is actually sculpting the surface of the planet directly. And pumping atmosphere in there. Now over time, these will actually start developing a thicker and thicker atmosphere on the planet. But in the meantime, I can actually start building colonies here, even while I'm waiting for that. So, pick a spot, zoom in. When I build a colony now, at this point, I get kind of the style that I had on my home world. But it has a bubble over it. This, by the way, is also what I would get if I were to build, at this point, a city underwater. So at this point, this level of technology, I can start colonizing the oceans on my home planet, and they would have bubbles as well. Now, this kind of takes a while. Now, once I terraform the planet, I won't need to build bubble cities, and I can actually build very elaborate kind of colonies that are earning me money to help me upgrade my UFO. That's kind of the real loop going on here. We have a little cheat here. You know, this is at the very high levels of the game. You'll eventually be able to afford the what we call the Genesis device. So this will very rapidly, if you notice the ground texture, you see things are starting to green up a bit. We're getting a little bit of atmosphere. As the storm clouds pull back a bit. So we are actually trying to bootstrap up the atmosphere, and then there's the biosphere score. So once you get a little bit of an atmosphere, you start then bringing in plants, probably that you've harvested from your home planet, and then you can actually start living there. So it's like a kind of a three-way colonization game, terraforming game. But really, we want players to be extremely creative, kind of with what they build here. So let's pull away from this guy. So now it's kind of green. That's a happy little place. Now our guy's there. So everything's good. As I mentioned, the UFO has a lot of different levels that you can advance on, the different tools that you add. One of the more expensive things that you really have to kind of work in here for a while and build some usable colonies, earn a lot of money, but eventually you earn the interstellar drive. And so we pull out again. Now this is our home planet here. We call this the stellar zoo. In fact, we want to have all the real things that you would see in space. One thing that's always really annoyed me about the way astronomy is presented is it's presented as two-dimensional. If you look at star maps like that, I mean, that's the way astronomy is taught. But yet it's this beautifully three-dimensional thing, and you just are not given the sense of what that's like. We have these beautiful images from Hubble, and we're never given any context for how big they are, where they live, how frequent we see them in space. And I really wanted to, at this level, give a player a real sense of what it feels like to be out in the galaxy. So we have things like black holes. Back here. We have planetary nebula. And this is basically an old supernova shell. These very bright stars are like blue giants, and in fact are going to go supernova fairly soon. So I have to kind of stay away from those. So there's actually a terrain here to this. This is the Missum nebula back here, where new stars are formed. But also at this level, we have a SETI tool. I can roll the mouse over different planets and listen to them. If I'm listening for radio chatter, I'm actually trying to discover other intelligence. Oh, there we go. What is that? There we go. Yeah, it's in an alien language, but I now know that there are aliens living there. So we can go visit that star now. So this is a different system that we're in. Looks like they had a little accident or something here. This is another race. Now this is the point at which I am overtly browsing other players' worlds. Okay, so this entire world was created by another player, and now the computer, it's downloaded to my machine. And I want to emphasize this is asynchronous. It's not a simultaneous multiplayer game. I download it from the other player, and the computer takes over control based upon the personality sliders that the other players kind of set for it when they evolved it. So let's go visit these guys. This is kind of a little hot planet because it's so close to the sun. You can see it has kind of a very different geology. Very arid. Very large sun there. Looks like we have a big city over here. We'll kind of approach slowly. Now, when we're doing first contact with the other species, you have to kind of play this little close encounters musical game with them to try and establish a language. And they may or may not respond well, depending on how you play it. So I'll try that now. Okay. But luckily we have defensive tools as well. So this is Space Invaders. My weapons are seeming a little ineffectual against them. But as I mentioned, all of our, tools in the UFO come in many different flavors. So. So there go our friends, and there goes my reputation as a nonviolent game developer. But we made a new ring. It was a nice crafts project. So I'll just pull out to here again. We're going to leave this place. There's nothing more to see here. Move away now. Okay, so at this level, the space level, we actually want to build a set of metagames around, basically my favorite genres of science fiction. Each one of these is going to be a metagame at this level. Starting with something like War of the Worlds, kind of an adult supervision, Peacemaker, Day of the Earth Stood Still type scenarios. Uplift, where I go to worlds that have just primitive creatures. I can drop down a monolith, and basically come back later and see how they've evolved to intelligence to see those worlds. First Contact, abduction and crossbreeding, of course. You'll have free access to the most of the editors at that point. So at this point, I can go back into the creature editor for free and make weird alien, hybrids. And diplomacy. Every race is going to have its own kind of personality. We're actually using the Star Trek races as kind of landmarks, making sure that we get, with the smallest number of dimensions, we can clearly distinguish between all these races, so that when I go up and interact, like the Klingons versus the Borg, or my versions of these things, that they should behave appropriately with each other. They, don't want to fight or trade or just be good friends and share, cool ideas, whatever. We want the space game to really feel very, very open-ended, and this is where I think most of the narrative is going to come into the game. I want the players to feel like they're creating these worlds. If you look at some of the old comic book covers from the 30s and 40s, that's what I want the players to feel like they can make these worlds of this variety. And if you look at these covers, they mostly, they have vehicles, buildings, aliens, and planets. So all the different things that we have editors for are represented on these covers. This is some of the concept art we did for trying to get a sense of how broad we think players can build worlds aesthetically. Now, the hub that all of this revolves around, and I haven't had much time today to go into the details, but the hub this really revolves around is compression, as I mentioned. The compression gives us tremendous leverage for the player to make them creative, which is a huge win for the player. It also, that same leverage, gives us generative systems, which we can use to populate huge content libraries. Also, it makes the content very portable, that we can use to build an unbounded world around the player, which is, again, is a huge win. We did over 200 prototypes of this. In fact, I've shown many of the prototypes for this over the years. I just didn't tell you what they were. But prototyping has become kind of a religion for us around this. And one last thing I wanted to say here. As we were working on this game, a lot of the games I've worked on, I've always hit obstacles, usually trying to, to convince other people it's a good idea or be sellable or whatever. When I look back on this idea, the biggest obstacle I truly had was making myself believe that we could build a game. It was my own imagination was the biggest bottleneck. Once I truly believed that this game was buildable, it proved to be actually quite easy to to persuade the rest of the of my staff and the executives and everything that we could do it. So I'd encourage all of you, if you've got some totally weird idea that is just so far outside the box that you think, there's no way that would work, go back occasionally and revisit those ideas, because, you just never know, where they might lead to. And last thing is, I can't talk about this again until E3. I'm sorry, I got special permission to talk about this today here, but I can't say a word of it outside this hall after this until E3. But that's it. Thank you very much.